Alcoholics are not physiologically addicted to the substance, distilled ethanol, alcohol. Nobody is. Nobody's body or brain wants this stuff in large quantities. Just let that last statement sit on the back burner for a while. And this will apply to drug addicts as well. Just wait. When anyone drinks alcohol, alcoholic or not, it obviously soaks into the bloodstream. After circulating through the entire body, it arrives at the liver, where it gets converted into a chemical compound called acetaldehyde. This acetaldehyde is poison, the pick your poison part of the process. Everyone makes the poison. But an alcoholic's metabolism changes the consumed alcohol into this poison twice as fast as a person with a normal metabolism. Alcoholic metabolism equals double the poison. That's the first main difference. We got 3 total. After the poison loops through the whole body system, alcoholic or not, it arrives at the liver for a second round of conversion and gets processed into a chemical compound called acetate. Everyone makes acetate. This is the form the body excretes, gets rid of via sweat, pee-pee, and breath. In a normie, this conversion happens quick and smooth. But in the alcoholic, this transformation from poison to the expellable form happens twice as slow. The alcoholic metabolism turns booze into poison twice as fast, then turns the poison into the expellable form twice as slow. So now, let's say 4 times the poison. But Mr. Drinks a Lot is probably down in twice as many drinks, so 8 times the poison. The alcoholic metabolism allows a ton of excess poison to float around the bloodstream of Mr. Drinks a Lot. The bloodstream leads to the brain. When too much poison crosses the blood-brain barrier in a normal brain, that human starts to feel like doo-doo. I apologize for the profanity. Then they say it's time to stop, and they get a headache the next morning. Here's the whopper. Here's where it gets weird. Something entirely different happens in the brain of the alcoholic. When the excessive amount of poison enters the alcoholic's brain, it starts to party and mingle with the neurotransmitters differently than it would in a normal brain, getting those little doses of poison. The brain's neurotransmitters can simply be understood as brain chemistry. Serotonin, dopamine, GABA, the chemicals responsible for moods, good or bad. In the alcoholic's brain, the excessive poison hooks up with the happy brain chemicals and produce a little devil baby called tetrahydroisoquinoline, THIQ. We'll just call it thick. Sounds like some good shit, and it is. This compound mimics opiates. It's an opioid. This compound does exactly what high-powered painkillers do: morphine, heroin, opium, OxyContin, oxycodone, hydrocodone, all the codones, codeine, Vicodin, Percocet. You get the picture. All these, and alcohol, when it comes to someone with alcoholism, do the same thing on a molecular level. They are the same. This is what everyone means when they say they are allergic to alcohol. They have an abnormal reaction to the drug because most brains don't do this. Also, why it's sometimes referred to as a brain disease, because it becomes pathological over time. But what this really means is an alcoholic is really an opioid addict. It means an alcoholic receives an entirely different reward from the exact same drug most people take, a far superior reward. When an alcoholic pounds down their drinks, they're not just sipping on some innocent beverage like everyone views it. To the alcoholic brain, it's more like plunging a syringe with a crumb of heroin in their arm. It just doesn't happen quite as fast, but the same nonetheless. As you can now see, the alcoholic is not addicted to alcohol. The alcoholic is addicted to thick. Like Jesus could turn water into wine, an alcoholic turns wine into a highly addictive, high-powered, narcotic painkiller. Now, for why this is important to know. How can knowing this help anyone in recovery? Everyone knows that for an alcoholic, when they start drinking, it's like taking a highly addictive, hardcore drug. And that's where everyone fucks up. I know it's just one little word, but it makes a big difference. To someone hooked on thick, drinking alcohol is not like taking a hardcore drug. It is. This frame of reference is very important when dealing with alcoholics. Drinking an entire pot of coffee can be like snorting meth. But this isn't what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, when it comes to alcohol and narcotic painkillers, most people's perspective comparison should be more like smoking meth is like snorting meth. It's just doing meth. You see? To bind this tighter to the perspective of a normie, it would be as if every single drink they had ever drunk, from back in the wine cooler days all the way up until now, and every alcoholic beverage they will drink from now on, were all spiked with little chunks of oxycodone or a couple drops of morphine. Nobody knows this is going on until they are already hooked for quite some time. Months and years of big-time chemical rewards and social rewards as well, esteem rewards, and eventually an entire life where whichever magical potion they are using becomes the engine in the center of a merry-go-round, keeping it all moving. Us alcoholics didn't know our drinks were spiked our whole life. Nobody did. Even when it was apparent our habit was getting worse, still, nobody knew it wasn't even the alcohol we were hooked on. It's no wonder everyone is so confused. Then the problem drinker finally asks, they can drink it, why can't I? A normie brain cannot make thick this way. It doesn't matter how much they drink. They don't have the genetic coding to make this stuff. They could drink heavily every day for years and would still be unable to produce it. This is the reason why people can go buck wild during their college years, and most can tone down their drinking when it's time to start adulting, and others cannot. This is also the reason for the confusion when an alcoholic gives up drinking for a period, maybe gets their life back on track, then tries to test the waters again by drinking like a normal person, a couple here and there. I switch gears fast, so keep up. At some point, whether you witnessed it or not, the addict, I'm going to call alcoholics addicts now, has tried to drink with control, and some, few, but some, succeed for a bit. Like I said, this can be very confusing for the addict and everyone around them. The scenario goes something like this. An alcoholic sobers up, it doesn't matter how or why. They get a few months of sobriety under their belt, maybe get their life and health in better condition. Then they decide they need a reward, or truly believe that since they are healthier, things are better, they're okay to give it a go again, like they had some sort of metabolic reset. The experiment can look something like this. This Friday, I will have a couple with dinner. A limit. And like I said, sometimes they pull it off. They have only a couple, and it works. They don't feel the need to pour the entire bottle down their throat that evening, and they wake up the next day with little to none of those uncontrollable urges. This experiment can go on repeat for quite some time, maybe a day, maybe a year, but eventually something leads them to that third and fourth drink, and then it's off to the races. They seemed to pull it off for a while, then suddenly end up binging again, and everyone throws their arms up wondering what happened. I'll tell you what happened. They tried to drink like a normal drinker and were successful, while drinking normal amounts, but only having a couple drinks won't make enough poison to trigger thick. Drinking like a normal drinker isn't enough to trigger the bender. And we will go over what normal drinking actually is later. So they go along thinking they've got their drinking problem licked. They set out to have a couple, and in that instance, they didn't experience any overwhelming urges to have more. They proved themselves right that they could indeed drink like normal folks. But there's a problem. What started as an experiment to find out if they were capable of drinking in a controlled fashion eventually becomes just a tease. You see, people drink for a reason. Everyone who drinks expects a certain effect from the drug. They expect a certain result. And over time, sometimes a short amount of time and sometimes longer, the pull for the desired effect leads to that third drink. Schmeh, I was fine with 2, what's one more? Then the 4th, and the 5th, and eventually, that's what I was looking for. You see? The goal to drink a couple is different than the goal of achieving a desired effect, but it always shifts to the latter eventually. They had to drink more to get the desired effect because they didn't desire the effect of alcohol. Got it? According to the National Institute of Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism, low-risk drinking for women is no more than 7 standard drinks per week, with no more than 3 in one day. For men, it's no more than 14 standard drinks per week, with no more than 4 in one day. Everyone in treatment has heard this. That definition says 1 day, but let's keep it real and say 1 sitting. Doesn't sound bad, right? For many, this might seem like a regular week's worth of drinks, but this is not what normal drinking looks like. These are the numbers for low-risk drinking. This ranges in the risk category. The risk is low, but what is this drinker at risk for? Is it the risk for developing a disease or triggering an inherent trait, one that's already there? The alcoholic can't achieve their desired effect from just a couple because they are not addicted to the effect of alcohol. They get a little buzz from the alcohol just like anyone else, but that's not the desired effect they are looking for. The buzz from a few is what a normie is looking for. There's another level, a level a normie can't reach. And the only thing that's needed to tip an addict past what might be considered a normal number of drinks is something like a rough work week, an offer of just one more beverage from the opposite sex, or sometimes the same, maybe a high school reunion, a best friend's wedding, or any little thing they need the drug to work for. It's why you may have heard the phrase, an alcoholic relapsed before they started drinking again. Something made them crave that specific desired effect. And that something is far more important than the effect itself. And that's what the next section is about, so stay tuned. Alcoholics do not care about the buzz they get from alcohol, physiologically. They want the high they get from thick, which requires more drinks. But they don't know this. They don't know that the effect they are looking for when they drink is different. An alcoholic looking for a cure is torn between drinking like a normie, aka a couple of drinks, and the urge for the desired effect, which is unachievable with only a couple drinks. If the substance alcohol gave them what they wanted, then they would be able to keep it controlled at a couple. They would drink a couple and have what they wanted. Alcohol is indeed controllable by everyone, but a high-powered narcotic painkiller is not. That's why it's classified as a narcotic. Like almost all science, this is only a theory, but as you can see, it's a damn good one. It explains why alcoholics are so prone to graduating to popping pain pills and using heroin, because they were already addicted to those things before they tried them. It's the same to the alcoholic. But what does this mean for the heroin addict who says alcohol is okay as long as it's not heroin? How about if you were sitting there watching this video and your loved one is struggling in recovery from a painkiller addiction, but you know that they think it's fine to drink at Christmas dinner? Not that they drink uncontrollably, but do you think that a day might come along when they seek a quicker route to their desired effect? Would it be looked at as okay if a recovering alcoholic started snorting Vicodin and said, at least it's not alcohol? And it's really not all that different for those addicted to uppers like cocaine who start binging on things like sugar or certain nutritional supplements and caffeine. Remember, sugar is 9 times more addictive than cocaine and accounts for far more health crises in America than any illicit drug. But my point is, they can often find ways to get close to the effect they want, but someday they will want the desired effect. Another one of the biggest reasons this is good for the addict to know in early recovery is because of the division in recovery group settings. There has been a rift, a separation, a bunch of old and new denominations of recovery programs splitting everyone up, a new and expanded menu of ways to say one is working towards a sober lifestyle, in the name of everyone does it different. In my opinion, this division is nothing more than the devil's work. It's as if an addict never sat in a bar or an alcoholic never ended up at a dope party. It's as if one of these groups doesn't lie, steal, party all night, or sleep around. It's as if an alcoholic never did hardcore drugs, and an addict never drinks. It's as if members of one group have never seen both the functional user and the puddle bum user. This is a big battle. Why would someone want to limit their soldiers? Why would someone want to say, I'm on Team AA or Team NA? Especially with those two groups. I can understand why some would choose an entirely different, medically treated, non-spiritual route, but for the love of Jesus, these two groups have split over nothing more than a few words switched around in the same book. Aren't we all so silly? My personal story on this is, I went through the AA program a few times, did what I was told, sometimes, had multiple sponsors and blah blah blah, but the last time I went through the program, the time it stuck for good, there was a key difference. That time I went through the program, I ended up picking a sponsor who just so happened to be an addict, an NA guy. This guy was a total meth head biker dude. He and I had absolutely nothing in common, except recovery. This sponsor stuck, and it was this connection which probably saved my life. Once again, it seems like just a little label, one little word, alcoholic versus addict. But when the ill-gotten perception shifts, new doors open. The next big reason it's useful to know the bottom line of this section has more to do with the obsession piece of this puzzle. But first, the cravings.